5 years from now, a version of you is going to sit down somewhere. Could be a kitchen you love, could be an apartment you settled for, and they're going to think about you, not the future you. You, the person watching this right now, on this specific, unremarkable day that you probably won't remember by next month. And that version of you will have one of two reactions. Either a quiet, almost private gratitude, like finding out someone you respect went out of their way to build something for you while you weren't looking. Or a very specific kind of frustration, not rage, worse, the slow, heavy weight of realizing that the person who had every opportunity to build something better just didn't. Tuesday didn't feel important enough to try. I want you to do something right now. Not later. Right now. Think about 4 things you already have access to. Your calendar for the last 2 weeks. Your bank statement from the last 30 days. Your screen time report from the last 7 days. And your last 10 decisions, the ones nobody forced you to make. No deadline, no boss, no social pressure. Just you. Choosing. Those 4 things. They're not a description of your present. They're a rough draft, a projection. Your present, repeated 260 times, is your future. That's not a metaphor. That's arithmetic. And you don't need a crystal ball or some kind of epiphany to know where you're headed. You just need to read documents you're already generating without ever looking at them as what they actually are. A letter your future self will either thank you for or hold against you. This isn't a motivational video. I'm not going to tell you to hustle harder or wake up at 5 in the morning. What I'm going to show you is the compound math, the specific arithmetic that turns "it's just Tuesday" into 5 years of either "I can't believe I built this" or "how did I end up here?" 3 tools. The first one reads the rough draft your data is already writing. The second one separates the decisions that actually carry future weight from the ones you're wasting energy on. The third one redesigns the 2 or 3 choices that carry 80% of the compound, not with willpower, with architecture. Your future self is a tenant in a house you're building right now, and you've been handing them the keys without ever checking the blueprint. Let's check it. So why does none of this feel real? You've heard some version of Today Matters about 1,000 times, and yet, did today feel like a building block of your entire future when you were scrolling at 11:30 last night? Did it feel like an entry in a compound ledger when you ordered delivery instead of cooking? No. It felt like Tuesday, and Tuesday doesn't count. That's not laziness. That's your brain operating exactly the way it evolved to operate, inside a perceptual system that cannot process compound effects. The brain you're using right now was built for a world where consequences were immediate. Eat something bad, get sick today. Run from the threat, survive today. One action, one result, same afternoon. That operating system has been running for roughly 300,000 years without a software update. Compound effects, where the result of a single action is invisible for months and only becomes real after hundreds of repetitions, are outside the brain's perceptual range. Not hard to see. Outside the range, like asking your ears to detect ultraviolet light. So when you're lying on the couch at 10:30 at night, and the choice is between putting the phone down or watching one more video, your brain runs a cost-benefit calculation, and the calculation is rigged. Cost of scrolling? 0. The content is right there. Cost of putting the phone down? A small, felt discomfort. Lying in the dark with nothing but your own thoughts. The brain picks scroll every time. And in that single instance, the brain is right. One night doesn't matter. But you've made that same choice roughly 850 times in the last 2.5 years. 850 repetitions of 30 extra minutes of scroll instead of sleep is 425 hours. Almost 18 full days of lost recovery. The brain was correct every single night and catastrophically wrong in the aggregate. 2 people, same age, same job, same Tuesday evening. Person A scrolls for 45 minutes after work, orders food, watches something, sleeps around midnight. Person B spends those 45 minutes on a skill they're building, cooks something basic, reads for 20 minutes, sleeps by 10:30. Day 1 difference? 0. You could not tell them apart. Compound it 365 times. Person B has invested 274 hours in a skill, saved roughly $4,300, averaged an hour and a half more sleep per night. Person A invested those same hours into content that produced 0 cumulative assets. Same Tuesday. 2 completely different lives. Neither felt the gap opening. That disconnect between the imperceptible daily input and the massive compounded output, that's where your future gets built or wrecked. The 3 tools don't fix the brain's limitation. They give you a workaround, a way to see the math your brain can't feel. So today starts reading like what it actually is. Line 847 of a ledger your future self inherits with no appeals process. Okay, the brain can't feel compound effects, but you don't need to feel it, you need to read it. And the data is already sitting on your phone. You don't need a vision board, you don't need a 5-year plan, you need 5 minutes and 4 sources of data you already have. The future self-audit doesn't ask, what do you want your future to look like? Everybody wants the good version. The audit asks a different question, based on what you are actually doing. Not planning, not intending. Doing. What does the compound projection say? Data source 1. Your calendar. Open the last 2 weeks. Don't read the entries. Read the pattern. How many hours went to building something that compounds versus maintaining routine obligations that don't accumulate? Count the build hours. Multiply by 260. If it's under 100, your compound account is getting minimum deposits. The calendar shows what you actually funded with the only non-renewable resource you have. Data source 2. Your bank statement. Last 30 days, outflows only. Sort into 3 buckets. Consumed. Things that vanish when they're done. Maintained. Rent, utilities, keeping life running. Built, savings, investments, education. The audit that changed everything for me wasn't forward-looking. It was backward. I was 29. Financially not broke but not built. Pulled my bank statements from 24 to 28. Sorted every transaction. 94% consumed or maintained. 6% built. Roughly $187,000 earned after tax. Across 4 years, about $11,200 went to anything that compounded. The rest, delivery food, forgotten subscriptions, small purchases that added up to everything. Kitchen table, 11 p.m. on a Sunday, spreadsheet open, nobody stole my money. 1,400 consecutive daily spending decisions on autopilot. Data source 3, your screen time report. Last 7 days. Don't look at total hours. The ratio is what matters. Input that builds something versus input that just passes time. That ratio is the diet your brain is being fed. Over 5 years, the cognitive architecture is fundamentally different depending on which side gets more hours. Data source 4. Nobody tracks this one. Your last 10 free decisions. Choices from the past week that no deadline forced. Did you go to bed or keep scrolling? Cook or order? Call the friend or just think about it? Open the project or open the app? These decisions show what you default to when no one is watching. And defaults, repeated 1,000 times, are destiny. Read all 4 together. If the projection makes you uncomfortable, good. That discomfort is the most valuable data point in the entire audit. The audit doesn't make you feel the compound. It makes you see it. And sight is precise enough to target. If this is landing for you, if you just ran part of that audit in your head and the projection hit different than you expected, hit the like. It tells me this kind of content is what you need, and it helps other people stuck in the compound. Illusion find this before another. Just be disciplined. Video finds them first. But seeing the trajectory isn't enough, because you're about to try to fix everything at once. And that's where the second tool saves you from yourself. The audit reveals something that should offend you. You spend most of your daily decision-making energy on choices that carry almost none of your compound future weight. Think about the last 24 hours. Which decisions burned the most mental bandwidth? Probably what to eat, what to watch, which email to answer first. Now ask, if you compounded any of those 1,000 times, would it produce a measurably different life? Almost none. The restaurant doesn't compound. The Netflix selection doesn't compound. These are noise decisions. They demand attention because they need resolving right now. But their compound value rounds to zero. It's the mental equivalent of agonizing over a $3 price difference between coffee shops while you don't have a retirement account. And meanwhile, the 2 or 3 decisions that carry 80% of the compound weight, you make those on autopilot. The compound decision ledger splits every choice into 2 categories. Noise decisions, near zero compound consequence, regardless of which option you pick. Give these 10 seconds. Pick and move. And compound decisions, where the difference between option A and option B, repeated daily, produces a measurably different life. The list is shorter and more boring than you'd expect. Sleep versus scroll. That 30 to 90 minutes before bed, compounded over a year. 180 to 540 hours pointed in one direction or the other. Build versus pass. The free hour that isn't scheduled isn't demanded. Over 5 years, 1,500 hours of accumulated capability or 1,500 hours of accumulated nothing. Save versus spend. The tiny ones. $12 for delivery versus $4 cooking at home, individually and visible. Annually? $3,000 to $5,000 in one direction or the other. Speak versus defer. The honest conversation, the boundary, the repair. Compounded over years. The difference between relationships that deepen and relationships that slowly erode under the weight of everything nobody said. Now, look at where your deliberation budget actually goes. You spend 40 minutes deciding what to order and 0 seconds deciding whether to scroll or sleep at 11 p.m. You research a purchase for an hour and spend the entire free evening on autopilot. The compound decision. Ledger doesn't add decisions to your day. It reallocates your attention. Noise decisions get less energy. Compound decisions get more awareness because 2 minutes of conscious choice at the sleep scroll moment, the build pass moment, the save spend moment, and the speak defer moment carry more future weight than every other decision in your day combined. So now you can see the trajectory. You know which decisions carry the weight, and your brain is about to do the thing it always does. Try to willpower its way through all of them starting tomorrow. Wrong strategy. The third tool is why. Every video like this ends the same way. Be more disciplined. Choose better. Show up every day, and you do it for about 4 days. Maybe 6 if you're really fired up. Then Thursday hits, the motivation fades, and you're back to the old default. The advice was structurally wrong for the problem. Compound decisions happen every single day. Willpower depletes every single day. Asking willpower to win a daily fight for 5 straight years is like asking a sprinter to hold race pace through a marathon. The sprinter doesn't collapse because they're slow. The strategy doesn't match the time frame. What works instead? Default architecture. A redesign of the choice environment so the high compound option happens automatically and the low compound option requires effort to access. You don't decide to brush your teeth every morning. The toothbrush is on the counter, the routine is embedded, and not brushing would be the weird choice. That's architecture, the blueprint. Override applies the same logic to the decisions that carry your future weight. Override 1, the sleep scroll default. Phone within arm's reach at bedtime, every app accessible, scrolling is the path of least resistance. The override, phone charges in a different room starting tonight. When it's in another room, doing nothing in bed becomes the easy path, and scrolling requires getting up and walking. Even a 15-second barrier flips a default for a brain that's already tired. Override 2, the build pass default. Free hour arrives, no pre-committed plan. Brain defaults to consumption. The override, that hour gets a specific, named, calendar-blocked build activity before the day starts. Not, I should work on my project. An actual entry, 6:30 to 7:30 p.m., the skill name, visible on the calendar. Skipping now requires overriding your own plan, psychologically harder than drifting. Override 3, the save spend default. Money sits in checking where it's immediately spendable. The override, An automatic transfer, even $10 a day, to a separate account before you can touch it. $10 a day, automated at a conservative return, produces a fundamentally different financial position in 5 years, because automation ensures it happens on day 1 and day 1000 regardless of mood. Override. 4. The Speak Defer Default. Important conversation? No deadline. The override, a 48-hour rule. Any conversation identified as important gets a calendar entry within 48 hours. Not completed, scheduled. The scheduling converts an open loop into a committed event. The rule doesn't eliminate discomfort. It eliminates the deferral, which is where the compound damage lives. Now step back. Think about a river. A river doesn't choose its path. It follows the terrain, the path of least resistance, shaped by every drop that came before. If you want it to reach a different destination, you don't motivate the water. You don't give the current a pep talk. You move the rocks. Dig a different channel. The water, following the same physics, flows somewhere completely different, not because it decided to. The terrain changed. Your daily defaults are the terrain. Your choices are the water. Every Change Your Life video tries to motivate the water. That's why the river goes back to the old channel by Thursday. The blueprint override moves the rocks, and the water flows to the new place, not because you're more disciplined, but because the path of least resistance now leads somewhere different. Your future self doesn't need you to become a different person. They need you to redesign 2 or 3 defaults and let the math run. Compound math doesn't care about your intentions or your feelings about Tuesdays. It cares about what actually happens 1,000 times. And what actually happens is determined by the defaults. Build better defaults. The math builds the future. So, don't try to fix everything tonight. Don't overhaul your life tonight. Don't set 5 alarms, download 3 apps, and write some 10-page manifesto. That's motivation pretending to be strategy, and it burns out by Thursday. One thing, pick the compound decision from the ledger that carries the most weight in your audit. The one where the gap between your current default and the trajectory you want is widest. For most people, it's the sleep scroll default. The person who reclaims 60 to 90 minutes of sleep by removing the phone from the bedroom wakes up with more cognitive capacity, which compounds into better choices across every other category. But your audit might say different. Trust your data. If it's sleep versus scroll, stand up right now. Take your charger. Move it to a room that is not your bedroom. Plug it in. That's the override. Tomorrow morning, you'll notice. Not because one night changed your life, but because the default changed. If it's build versus pass, open your calendar. Block tomorrow's free hour. Name the activity. If it's save versus spend, open your banking app. Set a daily automatic transfer. $5, $10, whatever doesn't scare you. If it's speak versus defer, open your contacts. Find the conversation you've been avoiding. Schedule it within 48 hours. 1 override. 60 seconds. Day 1 of the new ledger. Your future self can't come back and make this decision for you. They are the product of whether those things happen. Automatically, by default, 1,000 times, because the architecture made it the easiest option. So what does your architecture look like after tonight? 5 years from now, the letter arrives. Specific, detailed. It names the habits, the finances, the relationships, the skills you built or let erode. And at the bottom, 1 line. The only question is whether today, this forgettable, easy-to-dismiss day, is day 1 of the ledger that writes it. Move the phone. Block the hour. Automate the save. Schedule the conversation. The math doesn't need your motivation. It needs your architecture. Build it tonight. The letter writes itself. Your future self won't thank you for the epiphany. They won't thank you for the motivation. They won't even remember the day you decided to change. They'll thank you for the defaults. The structural, automatic, architecturally redesigned daily choices that ran 1,000 times below your conscious awareness and built line by line, deposit by deposit, rep by rep, the life they're now living inside. The letter from your future self isn't written by inspiration. It's written by repetition. And repetition isn't built by willpower. It's built by architecture. One phone moved to another room. 1 hour blocked on a calendar. One transfer automated. One conversation scheduled. 4 architectural changes, 60 seconds each, compounded for 5 years. That's not a transformation. That's an engineering project. And your future self doesn't need you to be transformed. They need you to be an engineer. Today, this unremarkable Tuesday, for 60 seconds. The rest is math. Don't tell me you're going to change your life. Drop your compound decision and override in the comments. Sleep scroll, moving my charger to the kitchen right now. Audit build pass. Just blocked 7 to 8 p.m. tomorrow. Save spend. Set up a $10 auto transfer. Speak defer. Scheduled the conversation I've been dodging for 3 weeks. A plan without architecture is just another intention. And your future self has had enough of intentions. They need engineering. Subscribe if this reframed how you think about daily decisions. More content coming on the invisible compound math underneath your habits, so you can build by design instead of drifting by default.